Joe Rothwell's spectacular double helped Southampton recover from 2-0 down to beat Huddersfield 5-3 in that contest at St Mary's. James on X says, good luck to @TotalSaintsPod unpacking that utter madness. I don't really know where to start. I mean, this is going to be quite some blog this week from you, Glenn, I'd imagine, one of the longer ones. What was your take on yesterday as the heart recovered after that?
It's the sort of game that brings out every sort of reaction over the course of the 103 minutes or whatever it was. I think we're probably going to touch on it later. We had some sort of negative reactions at halftime, which wasn't the best. And at the end of the game, obviously we've scored 5 goals in the second half, and there's a few people, we won, everything's great. Luckily, the manager isn't one to go for either one of those extremes. So he's I liked his quote where he straight away said, well, I'm not necessarily a fan of 5-3 games, so there will be some things for him to work on. He said in the tactical evening that we went to, and he said at various times that he wants to win games by controlling games and restricting the opposition, and we certainly didn't do that, especially in the first half. It was kind of open and kind of mad, and you don't get games with that many goals without there being a certain amount of dysfunction in one or both of the teams. So, first half, Huddersfield were very good. They pressed us, they pressed our defence, and most importantly, they pressed our midfield. So what that meant was that we couldn't do our usual sort of pass up through the thirds and get it to the front players. So we were tending to only sort of like knock a couple of passes and then try the chip ball into the forwards, and that wasn't sticking. So we were struggling. And then the substitution when Flynn Downs had to go off. So we had a midfield that was under pressure, and bringing Joe Rothwell on at the time, it kind of meant the midfield was under even more pressure, because Smallbo back in that defensive midfield position doesn't really work when the midfield's under pressure. So within 5 minutes of that, obviously we were 2 goals down, and things weren't looking very, very, very good at that particular time. But important substitution at half time with Brooks coming on for Adams, who'd had probably the worst game I've ever seen him have in his life. He was awful. So Brooks coming on, and he showed sort of like absolute quality right from the moment he came on. And then we had the two ridiculous goals. The first one in particular from Rothwell is just ridiculous, and the second goal was a wonderful pass from Brooks. Obviously, at 2-2, we had them on the ropes. Adam Armstrong got put clean through. Bad miss. And then from that moment on, Huddersfield kind of got a foothold again. Got their goal, which was a bit of a, which was a fluke. I think it was heading for the corner flag until it hit Smallbone and looked up over the keeper. Of course, then we got the own goal. And then our bench took over. When we brought the bench on, bringing on players of the quality that we brought on, it was a cheat code, really. And Huddersfield just kind of died at that point. They didn't have anything comparable to bring on, and they didn't have the energy to go back, and cause us more problems at 3-3. And then we took over, and the subs won us the game. So it was slightly mad. There were things to work on. There was some brilliant stuff in the second half from a number of players, and I think it shows. It stands us in very good stead in the way that we'll be able to manage this. Hopefully, be able to manage this fixture pile up with the players we've got ready to come in and do a job. Should they need to? I imagine there's not a squad in the league. Maybe Leicester, who have got as strong a squad as we've got. So as long as I think Russell Martin will be looking at making sure he gets the balance right in that midfield. With Flynn Downs being probably injured for the Bristol City game, be interesting to see what he does there. But as long as we keep rolling along, picking up 3 points. It usually takes a defeat to act as a wake-up call, and I think we'll have got a bit of a wake-up call from winning, because if you have too many chaotic matches like that, sooner or later you're going to lose one. But the bottom line is we got 3 points. It was a mad, entertaining game for everybody, and there's things to work on. So all good.
A wonderful summary. Steve, Huddersfield I think they'd won just one of their previous 12 away games, but they were good value for their lead at half time. And I couldn't quite work out whether they just came with no fear and played with no fear, or whether it was our downfall and we created our own mess.
Probably a bit of both, but I think certainly they came with a sense of freedom. And you heard from from their caretaker manager in the post match interviews, where he basically said, "Look, I could have come here and set us up defensively and just taken a 2-0 defeat, but what's the point? That's not really helping anybody certainly from a Huddersfield persuasion." So yeah, I mean they came and they had a go. They clearly targeted a few areas that they thought that we were susceptible. I mean, namely, they basically ran through the channels. Had a lot of success, especially once Downs wasn't there to offer a little bit of protection. And yeah, I mean they look like a team that shouldn't really be where they are in the league table. But you can never really judge these sort of things on one-off performances, because I think in the game up at their place, while they were probably just about value for the draw, they didn't look very good. It was more that we just basically just didn't turn up, and we tried to stroll through that game at up there before Christmas. And yeah, they looked energetic. But as has been the case with so many games at St Mary's this season, we've got the strength in depth that comes off the bench, and the style that we play, the way that we move teams from side to side, creating little pockets of space all over the pitch. Eventually, the tiredness tells, and it's late in games, and we're scoring loads of goals in the last 15 minutes of games. And I think I worked it out just before we came on air. 19 players have scored as substitute for us this season in all competitions, which is absolutely ridiculous. Hell of a lot of those have been, certainly in the last couple of months at home, have been adding gloss to results to make games like 3-4, 5-0. But for once for this one yesterday, they've all come off the bench and basically got us the result. Because I think with the side that started, I don't think we'd have been able to dig that out yesterday.
Yeah, interesting, actually. I mean, Alfie, the other statistic that was doing the rounds yesterday, we hadn't conceded more than one goal in a fixture since October, which was about 109 days, I think. So there will be a bit of an inquest into that. Whilst, it was great that we won, but we did concede some pretty soft goals at home. So there's work to be done there before Tuesday night.
Yeah, it was probably the first bad afternoon, you say, for the back four and the guys in front of them as well for quite a long time. The third goal was obviously a complete fluke, but the sort of the continual pounding in the first half was completely deserved in Huddersfield. And I think Steve sort of mentioned what the caretaker said. They came with a clear plan. They actually changed shape from the 4-0 win they had on the weekend before, just to reduce the distances between the players and just sort of keep that pressure on the ball player. And that relies on Southampton not sort of pinging it around them. They didn't do that for the first half. When they started doing that, they controlled the game and dominated them from 75 minutes onwards. But I saw a lot of people sort of criticising Ryan Manning. There was a couple they didn't get out too quick enough. Will Smallbone, I really like Will Smallbone in the 8. I remember I said at the start of the season that I was part of the Will Smallbone fan club. And I still retain that. But when he plays in the 6 in front of the defence without Flynn Downs, I just don't think he offers no protection. He doesn't. He's not strong enough in a tackle. People seem to go through him. He misses chances to bring players down. And I think we're probably going to see on Tuesday at Ashton Gate the same midfield of if Stewie Armstrong is fit. And just on the injuries, by the way, I think Russell Martin said that Flynn Downs needs to be assessed, but it doesn't look brilliant for him. Che Adams was a tactical substitution. He's fine. He has a bit of a knock, but that wasn't the reason he came off. And he said that Stuart Armstrong should be fine as well. He just took a hit. So I think we'll see Stewie Armstrong, Joe Rothwell and Will Smallbone in the midfield 3 again. And creative-wise, they'll create chances, they'll score goals, but I think they lack a little bit of protection. So, yeah, obviously, Howard Bellis and Bennett were disappointed, but I think it was about what was in front of them as well.
You're shaking your head, Glenn.
Well, yeah, I think Shay Charles should play without a shadow of a doubt, especially in an away game. But yeah, I mean, if Stuart Armstrong is fit, I agree that is probably, I agree with Alfie. That's probably what he'll do. But for me, if Downs is not fit, Shay Charles will be the first name on the list. But I don't know. Maybe he seems to be out of favour a little bit at the moment. I know there was one particular game where he wasn't great. I think it was Coventry that he played, wasn't great, and ever since then he seems to have fallen down the pecking order a little bit. And if we go with that midfield in an away game, I mean, Bristol City when they played us at St Mary's, they basically sat 10 behind the ball.
Yeah,
And they played on the break, and they were quite successful, but the strikers missed chances. So be interesting to see how aggressive they are in midfield. But if they're aggressive against that midfield three, if that's what we put out, then we could be in for a tough evening.
Did anyone hear the fans booing the team off at half time, by the way? Was that down your end, Steve? You heard it as well. I wasn't sure whether it was the team or whether it was for the ref, or was it maybe a bit of both? Did you hear any of that, Steve, at your end?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would. So, I mean, certainly what I've seen on Twitter in terms of reaction to that, it seems as if everybody who was there, their kind of reaction was that it was probably for the team, but it just feels so completely out of context that
it's ridiculous, isn't it? Let's put it
obviously, I mean, last season, I don't think there were many occasions where you could sort of genuinely put up any sort of defence of the team when they've been booed off for a lot of those performances. They were pathetic on sort of so many occasions, and you just think, well, okay, people are letting off steam. We knew how the season was going to end from a relatively early point in that one, but this season, where surely those players have earned enough trust.
Yeah, you've seen nothing but fight over 24 games, have you?
Yeah, so. over the last 4 months or so, to have gone on this little run, and basically we've had one bad 45 minutes, and it was bad. We were rubbish in that first half, but I mean, come on, let's get a bit of perspective here. It was rubbish, but what do we know was likely to happen at this point? They're going to go into that dressing room. Russell Martin is going to get into them, and we'll make some tweaks, and those players will go back out there and they'll pick the performance up, and that's exactly what happened.
It is quite nice seeing a reliable sort of half-time motivator, though, because we didn't really see that last couple of seasons. There wasn't ever really a reaction or a response, whereas every time it's been a poor first half this year, I think we have genuinely seen a clear reaction, a uplift in intensity and aggression.
Even when that ball looped over Bazunu's head to restore their lead, I wasn't worried because I
was worried.
knew
I felt that there would be the energy might be sat there, but I was totally wrong. So.
No, I just thought it's fine. They've scored 3. We'll have to score 4. It's all right. That's kind of how it went. And I know we've spoken about the bench, Glenn, but I mean, what a week for Sekou Mara. That was 3 goals in 4 days for him. That's that first half, and we'll get onto the Watford game. That first half at Watford, I'd have probably taken him off at half time on Tuesday night because I thought he was pretty terrible. But since then, he's having a great week.
Yeah, and it's about time. It is about time. He's had a number of chances and he's not done it. And the last 2 or 3 times he's been on the pitch, however long he's been on for, he's made a difference. And he made a great difference against Huddersfield. Scored 1 goal, set up another goal. It's a decent finish for his goal. But personally, I was a bigger fan of the setup play for Edozie on the 5th goal, battling away with that player on the ground, and then just calmly rolling it back for his teammate to smash it in the net. That's brilliant centre forward play, and that's what you want him to do. Said on several occasions, he's not like this little slight thing that you breathe on him and he falls over. He's quite a big lad. He looks like he's about 6 foot taller, but he plays like he isn't. And in that instance, it was nice to see him sort of like using his strength to hold the defender off and lay that back. And so maybe I'm going to have to revise my long held opinion that is that I was always asking, is there a player in there? I just don't see it. But against Huddersfield, he showed what he could do. It's a completely different challenge to do it from the start of a game, obviously. Coming on as part of a very strong bench against a very tired team. It's a favourable set of circumstances, but he's he can only play the cards he's dealt, and that's what he was given, and he did something with it, like he did in the second half against Watford. So fair play to the guy, and hopefully he keeps going and turns into a more a more all-rounded player who we can one day trust to start games and not disappear.
We shouldn't forget that the new Charlton manager said that he was the best finisher at the club about 12 months ago, maybe a bit longer. So he's also got something about him in training.
That new Charlton record with his 0% win record.
Already. I knew that was
but-
going to creep in tonight.
But he
somewhere.
wanted to take that game on, even though he's been there a couple of days, because statistically, that's the kind of guy he is.
Before we move on, Steve, just a word on Rothwell and Brooks. I feel like we just need to just pay a bit more lip service to them and how good they were. Rothwell didn't get off to the best of starts, but yesterday kind of more than made up for that, I felt.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, Rothwell's initial appearances have been ropey, to say the least.
But we have seen that before as well, though, haven't we? We've seen that with other players.
I mean, certainly there. It seems to be a bit of a theme of ours that players take a few games at least to get up to speed. I mean, we saw it with obviously Ryan Fraser was fine when he was coming off the bench, but every time he got given a start, he was kind of wasting it a little bit initially. But he's obviously grown into that and is now kind of one of the sort of obvious names on the team sheet. Well, I wonder whether that might start to change a little bit with obviously David Brooks now seemingly up to speed. Came on at half time and, as Glen mentioned earlier, was excellent. He looks like another one of these players that is clearly far too good for this division. And we've got to kind of fit all of these players into the team somehow. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice problem to have. And with all these games coming thick and fast, I mean, the fact that we got 2 midweek games this week is absolutely ludicrous. And there's almost certainly going to be some rotation, you would imagine. I don't see any possible way we play the same. I mean, obviously we're not going to play the same 11 Tuesday as we did yesterday because of at least one enforced injury.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're not going to play the same team Tuesday and Friday. So yeah, players are going to have to slot in, and it's going to have to appear kind of almost seamless. I mean, they've looked all right in the last sort of 6 weeks or so when we've had extra games. So shouldn't be too concerned. But that West Brom game on Friday is a big one. I think Bristol City are a bit hot and cold. By the sound of it, they were pretty good on. By the sound of it, they were very good yesterday at Middlesbrough. But I watched them against Leeds the week before, and they were completely toothless. So again, toss a coin to see which Bristol City side shows up at Ashton Gate on Tuesday. But West Brom at their place is going to be tough. They were. I mean, probably until the first hour yesterday, they were probably the best team that we've faced at St Mary's this season, I would say. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, players, the slightly more fringe players, need few of them to step up in starting games.